Hello and welcome to the Wow Show, an hour full of stories from and for truck drivers on the road. We're going to have fun saying thank you for who you are and what you do as drivers. And we're going to talk to some people who know their stuff so that we can learn more. My name is David Benyachek. I'm your host. Let's get started.
Let me get myself unmuted here and set up. Hi there.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good. You're in God's country, Kelowna.
We all can't be in Ottawa, and it's so sad. But I'm here speaking at the rally tomorrow. And I know there's a big truckers rally as well in Vernon tomorrow. So there's so much happening all over the country. It's amazing.
There is. And even in the States, they're saying go up to the Sweetgrass border crossing in Montana. There were two others.
Three altogether.
And even if they can't cross, they're all going up there just to say, hey, we're going to support what's going on. Mm-hmm. And it's like hundreds, thousands of trucks.
Have you seen so many smiles and so much joy?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you in these last few days, you can't pack in the amount of joy and happiness and smiles people have had in comparison to the last 2 years.
So, I mean, one of the biggest comments or the most frequent comments when I met you with Nadine was...
No, this is Nadine.
No, this is Canada. Oh, Nadine, right?
This is Nadine.
Yeah. Okay, I'm confused.
I got to keep them straight.
There was Candace, there was Nadine, there was Laura Lynn, and I know all of them.
Yes, and you know yourself, and that's good. And but the biggest comment was, I feel hope.
Mm-hmm.
That was the biggest comment. It was like, I feel hope. I haven't felt hope in a long time, and I feel it. And so that was really, it's just really cool to see. I agree with you. That's awesome. So what are you expecting tomorrow in Kelowna?
Well, I really don't know what to expect here tomorrow in Kelowna. The organizers here and the people that have really been standing up for the last 2 years and fighting for freedom here in Kelowna have done an amazing job. You can go through Kelowna and there are billboards up. Yep. There are, signs. There's a really dedicated group of individuals here who have been pushing really hard for the last 2 years. And I happen to know some of them personally, and I happen to be here. And they asked if I would come out and speak tomorrow and address the crowd. And I was like, of course, I'd be more than happy to do that.
Nice. And, where's it happening in Kelowna?
Well, they have the Freedom Rally.
Yes.
They have a protest. And then, of course, Vernon is having a big truckers event going on as well tomorrow morning / afternoon, like for the day. Yeah. So there's so much. I can't keep up. Nadine actually means hope.
Nice.
And so for so long, it's so wonderful to see our truckers, who've picked up the torch and are running with this and making this happen. Yeah. But, for 2 years and longer, there have been people in this fight who've just held the space and they've held the line, yeah. So it's, I don't want them to be forgotten because, God bless our truckers. I am so thankful. That was one way that the world is watching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's beautiful. But, there's been 2 years of people going to protests and holding the line and keeping this space, every weekend, every day. Yeah. And they deserve so much. And they've got to be so pleased right now with the outcome. Justin Trudeau hiding in his little hen hole. He may not surface for months. He thinks that I'm away for 5 days and don't go away. It's like, no,
we're still gonna be there. It's still gonna be there. But you know what? And I will say this: we had the chance to talk with Laura Lynn just now, or about an hour ago, and so we did that interview. And just this vision. I mean, this outpouring of love that Canadians have given truckers. And as we've talked, I mean, this is Canada's Big Rig Calendar every year, and we've been doing it since 2008. We celebrate 13 drivers, and now we've got the blog or the podcast and the radio show. But as they've been showered with love, they have truly been impacted. And I don't know what's going to happen in Ottawa tomorrow and the days that are following, But to me, I've been telling them, if that's your cargo, if you just take the love that you've received and take it to Ottawa and just pay it forward, love the locals, maybe do good deeds, shovel some sidewalks, clean some areas up. Like, wouldn't it be cool to start a hashtag clean up Ottawa? I mean, what a metaphor.
Than you realize.
And I, because I said your presence is gonna make the statement. I mean, I don't know, 20,000 trucks or however many trucks are gonna show up in Ottawa parked. It makes the statement. But the presence, presents, like Christmas gifts, the gifts that you bring, if you bring your love and you bring what you've got on this convoy, it's going to make the difference. Because they're expecting violence, they're expecting a whole bunch of other things. And if you give them something completely different, and that is the trucking community. They are a community, and they're about loving one another, and they're about holding each other up. And if that's what they bring, I hope that's what they bring, because it's going to they're already impacting the world. We're seeing convoys in Sweden and all over Europe starting up because of Canadian truckers. Mm-hmm. It's just amazing.
The entire world is watching, and you hit the nail on the head. Truckers are a community, and that is something that, over time, the government in part, we allowed it to happen, but the government in part has promoted this individual isolation. We pull into our garages and we don't know our neighbors, and you don't have to, because you pull into the garage, you go into your house now. And I mean, that's very convenient when you're living in -30. I understand why people do it, but we've lost that sense of community, and truckers never did. They've always maintained that. They are a big family, and we are so blessed that they have allowed us into that family. And I don't think this convoy is not about violence. This convoy is about sending a message to what I deem to be an illegitimate and corrupt group of individuals in Ottawa, politicians. And, we can't even say just Trudeau. I'd love to see Trudeau go, but if Trudeau is gone, he's going to be replaced by more of the same. Yeah. It's the ideology that has to change. This leftist, this woke ideology, this whole authoritarian, draconian, I have the power and Canadians don't matter. That's what's got to go. And I think that's what the truckers are really standing up against. Yeah. And they're loving and generous. And how can you not just pay that forward, like you said, when they have been receiving so much of this across the entire country? Quebec City, did you see that?
Yes, fantastic.
Oh my God.
Merci, mon ami au Québec. C'est awesome.
Yeah, so people expect it out of Saskatchewan. They suspect it out of Alberta. We're the rednecks. But, Quebec City, Ontario, Toronto, Trudeau had the gall to call this a small fringe minority. Well, boy, he must have changed the definition.
I think he lit an even bigger fire.
Yeah, I think
he did.
And I think that's called even more people out. Well, we'll show him what sort of fringe minority we really are.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I am so excited to see what happens tomorrow. I'm already so excited. I have watched more grown men cry.
Yes.
In this last few days.
Yeah. We've talked to some truckers.
Old Yeller, it's
Yeah, we talked. We're friends with many of the people in the truck, lots of truckers, and we talked to one owner, and we asked him how he was feeling about everything, and he had sent a few of his guys into the convoy, and he's out of Winnipeg, and his son was one of them, and he said to his dad, Dad, I have never been prouder to be a Canadian than right now and what we did today. And this gentleman just broke down, and we're all crying. We're all crying, but I think that's a consensus across the board. Everyone is so emotional. It's like we've been so suppressed and pressed down, and now we're all rising up. and we're all in this together, and there's strength in numbers, and the support just grows by the hour almost with all of this. It's just amazing to see. You know, the patriotism and just the faith arising in Canada.
I'll leave it to Canadians to make history, you know, little tiny, you know, 38 million of us in this big, massive landmass. And the world, the entire world is truly watching. And if we can make a difference, they know they can make a difference. And, you know, I always said, courage is courageous. Courage is contagious.
Yes.
And it is. And all it takes is for people to just, you know, as Alexander Solzhenitsyn, the archipelago, the Gulag archipelago, you know, the one thing that I took away from that book was, do not partake in the lie. And that takes courage. And our truckers have, you know, really taken that to heart and, you know, said enough's enough. You know, and they do represent, I think, the majority of Canadians and the majority of people around the world. And their courage to stand as a community has united Canadians, because they know they're not alone. It's not a lone voice that's speaking. It's a community that came together, and they're welcoming. You know, everybody is welcome in this community. Right.
So you just kind of, you know, cemented it in my thing. I think, you know, obviously love is one of the gifts they're going to bring, but community is the biggest one.
Yeah.
And it may be. And I mean, that's always been my bent. I'm you know, I'm not in politics, but I you know, like that space, and government does play a role, but I'm a huge advocate of the power of community. So for example, recently, one of the truckers in Alberta, they had a fire on their farm, and he lost his truck, and he lost his equipment, and he lost a whole bunch of stuff. Well, here's this convoy of 70 trucks that shows up with you know, spare parts and equipment and money and cash, and it's a community taking care of their own. And the beautiful thing about when community engages is that the resources are already there. We're not going into debt. It builds relationships. It's powerful. When government gets involved, and there are some times where government does need to, our taxes go up, and it takes 2 years to approve. And there is power in resetting a little bit of the power of community, and just allowing community to kind of rise up and be the solution for a number of things in our Canadian landscape.
Absolutely. You know, to me, that's exactly it. So community and local, right? Keeping it close to home. You know, the further away government comes, you know, becomes from the people, the less in touch it is with the people. It doesn't know what you need. And, you know, people, you know, working from Ottawa can't know what people in Alberta need. They don't know what people in Quebec need. They don't know what people in the Yukon need. You know, those needs are individual, more local needs, right? Not everybody needs the same thing or wants the same thing. You know, we do have this mishmash of very distinct cultures and ways of doing things that have come together, and we call it Canada, and it's a beautiful thing. And the best thing sometimes the government can do is actually just get out of our way.
Yes.
And let communities do what they do best. But they constantly interfere. And we've seen this constant encroachment. Like, I'd like to say that what we've seen happen here with, you know, in the last 2 years has just been a result of COVID, but it hasn't. This has been a slow creeping, you know, snake slithering through the grass for some time. And if anything, it's, I think, really drawn attention to the fact that we need a lot of reform to not only our political arena, but our health care, to our education system, and a lot of these large institutions, which have become very bureaucratic, very administrative, you know, licensing and registration have hurt us. Our doctors are being penalized, punished, losing licenses for trying to do the right thing for their patient. And that's a direct result of government regulation and interference. You know, we've got to get rid of that and get back to community, get back to doing things, in our neighborhoods and in our provinces. And we know what's best. We know what we need. And, government's got to get out of our way. That's the big thing. Get out of our way. Restrictive government, small, very restrictive powers. Their number one responsibility is to protect our civil liberties. And they are the one organization that have stepped, and I mean trampled, all over them.
And it's interesting when you're talking about that, it just comes to my mind that, a community can play a part by actually just cutting their reliance on government funds. And so when you consider the trucking industry, there are a lot of good people in some of the associations that are involved in trucking and the alliances and so on. And they've got but because they're government funded, they really haven't been there for the truckers. There are a couple, and I'm not going to name names, there are a couple that have fought. And, I can tell you that when the government consulted the industry, it was unanimous across the country saying you should not impose mandates.
Yeah.
Every single association around that table said, don't do it. And it wasn't even because they were anti-vaccine or we're in a supply chain crunch. These people have been your heroes. Their current environment, if the goal is safety and not just vaccines, they're isolated in a cab. They do all their paperwork over the phone. They are not a danger. And so if they were good enough yesterday, they should be good enough today. And the government still went ahead with what they did. It's cool when communities just, say no to some of the funds that are available to them. I remember a friend of ours, that we have, and she's a miracle story, cured of CP. It was a miracle, cerebral palsy. But when she was still had that condition, her friend of hers told her that the government offered her like $1,000 or $1,500 a month. And she says, I turned it down. Mm-hmm. She says, because I just saw in the groups around me what a reliance on government funds did to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not progressive. It's recessive. Yes. Like it takes people back. And so that story hit home to me. Like she could have had $1,500 a month. And I think maybe it takes more communities. Maybe it takes churches saying, you know what, I forget our charity status. You're not going to leverage that on us. And and we're gonna sink or swim on our own, but we're gonna be powerful because we control our destiny, right? And that influence, that true separation is there, and maybe that's the healthiest solution. But it's community. I believe that's the biggest gift that these truckers are bringing.
Absolutely. And you said something else there too with our churches. They were more concerned about losing their tax exempt status and doing what was right. And hopefully that's a bit of a wake up call for all us Christians and anybody, in Canada, because they did not put us first. They didn't put God first. They put the government first, and they allowed them to do this. And they are supposed to be the ones to promote community and come together in these times of need. And this was a crisis. It was a true crisis.
By and large, haven't been there.
And they haven't been there. They haven't even been there for people to come together to be with community.
Yeah.
And that's a very strategic thing too, I think, with this Trudeau Liberal government. And, it's funny, you're seeing some of these politicians come out now, 22 months, 2 years into this pandemic, and they have gone along with everything Trudeau has done. And now, because it's become, the polls have shifted, right? It's popular now to support the truckers and, get a little limelight, so again, this is where for me is like the organizations, the COVID Care Alliance, Take Back Our Freedoms Alliance, all these organizations that have come to the table and have been fighting for years. They are the ones that are truckers, who are doing what they're doing now. They're the ones that deserve the attention, the limelight, and the thanks and the gratitude. The politicians that are trying to sneak their way in now to favor, because it's popular to do so, you're welcome. Everybody's welcome in this movement, and better late than never. But you know what? Sorry. there's some reckoning and some accountability that needs to be had here for the last 2 years. Where have you been?
Yeah.
Where have you been? Absent, missing in action. And I can't even say missing in action because they didn't even show up.
Yeah. 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 There was no action.
No. So but there are so many great groups that have held the line to get us to where we are. And now the truckers are I think that our truckers, Canadian truckers that are US truckers that are coming up to join, they're the ones going to take it over the goalpost.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible to have that support. But like you said, that infiltration of the corruption's on both sides, like the government as a whole, and there needs to be just a whole new remake
it's
of
not
our government.
It's not an anarchist statement. Like it's not it's not a forceful overthrow of the government. It's just using democracy to advocate for changes that are really needed. Like, when, I mean, it's not related to the COVID, but when Bill was at C4 recently passed unanimously, it was like, there's no way that at least 24 of the MPs in various regions of the country, if they voted for their constituents, would have voted yes.
Yeah. Freedom of speech has been under attack.
Yes.
C69, C48 for Albertans, the carbon tax. There's so much, and they're not serving the best interests of Canadians. And you're right, we need a complete overhaul. And it's not about violence. Tomorrow people are expecting violence. I don't expect any violence, not from the truckers, not from the people organizing this event. If there's violence, it will be from a group like Antifa.
Yeah.
And that's the Liberal government who, he probably picked up the phone and made the phone call himself, to let them know exactly where they were going to be and help them organize, because that's just their tactics. But that's not the Canadian way. And I know in my local town, I laugh because in my local town they started talking about, they wanted an inclusion statement. And I chuckled to myself, and I know all our town councillors, and I sent in get on my computer, and I said, here's your inclusion statement. It said, simple, precise, leaves nobody out. Everyone welcome.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? They're all trying to think up this huge, politically correct. How do we say? And I'm like, everyone welcome. I think that sums it up.
Yeah. No, I like it. I like it. On the thought of inclusion, I was thinking today, and I think it's probably true, and not even a mean-spirited way, but it is true that a lot of truckers, their vocabulary is not minding their P's and Q's. They may swear like a wild child. But they're not
trucker's mouth.
Yeah. but they've got hearts of gold. And so I was thinking of that. It was like, for a government that, advocates diversity and inclusion, is in that forefront, just because someone is not like I am doesn't mean I shouldn't be able to like them a lot.
Yes.
I mean, that's a diversity and inclusion rule. Just because someone's not like me doesn't mean I can't like you a lot. And I think, this will bring an important lesson for people to see beyond some of the surface stuff and look at the heart.
Yeah.
Well, what this has really done is said, this is not about vaccines or unvaccinated. There are just as many vaccinated people attending
absolutely.
This convoy and support this convoy as there are unvaccinated. That's not the issue here. Nobody is debating that. That's the beauty of freedom. I have the freedom to make my choices that are right for me, and you have the freedom to make your choices that are right for you. And get rid of the Vax Pass. What do you need a pass for? Because if you have concerns, you have the freedom to go or to not go. Everybody has a different level of risk that they're willing to assume, for themselves and for their family. And it's called respect. We have that in Canada. I mean, we were known around the world for this, respect for differences. And now, we have a prime minister that is literally, I would say, and arguably, I think could defend the position that has spread hate and division and segregation and is promoting discrimination. And I'm sorry, but that is not the way Canadians do things. And, we're only going to take that for so long. And it just took a community to
Mhm.
say, as a community, no, we're done. We've had it. And they're taking it over the goalpost. And
Yeah.
it's one of the proudest moments. Canada's going to make history.
Yeah.
We're making history.
Yeah, and as Canadians are listening, I mean, here's my thing, and I think around that point in the government and just the division, it's because the goal is wrong. And so there are three goals I think that all Canadians, as it relates to COVID, can agree on. We don't want more people than have to die because of it, and it is real, and it has killed Canadians. We don't want our doctors and nurses and frontline people to be, overrun and overworked, and they're heroes, and thank you. And we don't want the PTSD and the mental health issues that are going to last, that are going to be a long legacy of this pandemic, to be any worse than they already are. I think those three goals, 99.9% of Canadians will say, I'm in. And the trouble, what's concerned me, is that the government is just focused on one way to possibly get to those goals. The goal seems to be the vaccine and not safety. So, i.e., truckers, they're in their cab. They don't talk to anybody. They're isolated all day long. They do all their stuff over the phone. They've been our heroes. If the goal is safety, this mandate shouldn't even be talked about. And then there's all the discussions of prevention and treatments and all of those other things that achieve the same goal and give people choice.
Yes.
And let them choose, right?
That's really all it is. It's about, we're all pro-choice. We just want the choice, and
we want the same things as Canadians.
Freedoms.
Yeah.
And our bill, right back to Diefenbaker and our Bill of Rights. I mean, again, we made history with that around the world, that Canadian Bill of Rights. And then, we have the Charter and our Constitution. And, to see what Trudeau has done to twist the laws to make it work for him. And not only him, every premier in every province has pretty much gone along with this.
Yeah.
And again, I just, they all need to be held to account. You can't just, and this is just the beginning. I'm cautioning people, like, even when the mandate's going to go away, because they are going to go away. I'm pretty hopeful they're going to go away. But this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
Right? This is just the beginning, because we do have to keep the pressure on if we want to see real change. Otherwise, we are going to be doing this again in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. And I swore when I got involved with this, I am doing it. It is, to quote John F. Kennedy, once, very few generations are called to defend freedom. But this is the generation, this is the time is now. And, I accepted the responsibility so that my daughter in particular, I am hopeful that she never has to do this. I'm hopeful never, ever again, any Canadian ever has to do this. Yeah. So, let's fix the problems that are definitely surfacing here. And it's going to start with, like you said, taking out some trash in Ottawa.
Yeah, clean up Ottawa.
But it's very exciting because it's about reformation. We need reformation in many different pillars of our society. And here it is. It's right in front of us, and we all have that choice to participate in this and be a part of making history. And as Pastor Arthur, he addressed the group of truckers before they left, and he said, "You're now lions. You rise up to be lions to fight for your country." And it's beautiful to see. So, we're kind of known as the polite, nice Canadian, but we're showing the world that we also have courage and that we can be lions in the right sense. And if we can do it as the nice, polite Canadians, watch out, world, you can all do it with us. Yeah, every country. It boils
down to strength of conviction. Strength of conviction and courage. It's easy to be brave when you face a timid situation, but it's a lot harder to be brave, to feel the fear and to do something anyway. Yeah. And, which is why this is, again, where community comes in. And our trucking community, like I said, they stepped up to this, and I'm so proud. It does. I have shed my fair share of tears this week, I'll tell you. On Monday night, we're out in Cochrane, and somebody's firing off some fireworks, and Laura Lynn is coming through, and the truckers start coming in, and just to see the lineup of cars. This is 11 o'clock at night. It's cold. Most people had been there at that point for 2 to 3 hours at least, waiting. And it was just, it started then, the tears started. And now, you look at the videos and all the music videos that people have done. Putting together, it's spectacular. Every time I see one, I get so choked up.
Yes. Yeah. It's exciting. So Nadine, why don't you tell, we've been talking, and thank you. Why don't you tell our listeners about yourself and how you came to, be in the spot where you're out there speaking and campaigning and involved in the cause. Tell us about Nadine.
Well, a little bit about Nadine. I got very disinterested in politics quite some time ago because I didn't feel there was anybody that really stood up for what I feel to be truly Canadian values. There was no principle. It just seemed to be whatever was popular, and their main focus was how to get elected, not how to best serve the country. And then in 2017, 2018 in particular, this gentleman by the name of Maxime Bernier showed up on the scene, and I heard him speak a few times, and I just went, this guy's a politician? He doesn't talk like a politician. So what's going on here? What's his story? And as I followed Max and he started the People's Party of Canada, I loved his principles. And as I got to know him, I said, you know what, I can really rally behind this. And then my husband made the mistake of going, what are you going to do? You just going to keep talking, or are you going to do something?
So you stepped up.
On his part. Yeah, I stepped up and I ran in the 2019 federal election. And, I've been supportive of the People's Party in Canada, because who doesn't support freedom, fairness, respect, and responsibility? That is the core Canadian, in my opinion, things principles that stand, hold, and true. And, so I ran in 2021 as well. For the People's Party of Canada. And my background, you often wonder sometimes, like, how do you get here? Like, just how do you get here? And I started out, in nursing, which I didn't finish my program, but I did work in the hospital for a couple of years. And after that, decided, okay, maybe nursing's not where I belong. I did a degree in physical education and recreation. I worked for the Department of National Defense. Then I owned my own aerospace and defense company, working in modeling and simulation, human factors engineering. Wow. And then from there, I went to China, traveled. I've been all around the world, in Europe, in the US. And from that point, I came to Alberta, actually. I've been in Alberta for 16 years. And I started my own investment firm, securities firm in the private capital markets. And so I'm a chartered investment manager. So I have all this health expertise, and then I have all this economics and finance and, just this worldly view of things. And then you throw me into politics. So I'm like, wow, okay, I landed somewhere where I can make a difference.
You can use your experience.
But this is it. There's so many people out there like me that have this real life and can truly relate to people. They're not career politicians. Yeah. And, the Jason Kennys of the world in Alberta, Justin Trudeau, this is all that they've done, is played politics their whole life. And, they've been dependent upon the taxpayer dollar. They've never had to earn an honest dollar for themselves. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I don't take instructions well from others. At least what my husband tells me. But I do, I've also been an athlete my whole life. I'm happy to push somebody else in front of me and give credit where credit is due. But if if you're less competent than me, then follow. When you're standing at the cliff face, I used to teach grown men in the military how to rappel over a mountain. Over a cliff. Yes. And you have to, there's no fake in that, right? Somebody gets hurt. So you're very clear in your instructions, and you're very clear to take the lead in what needs to be done. But you know what? I was always the first over the mountain.
Woo!
Right?
Love it.
Always, because that's what leaders do. We get out front and we make sure. And then I was always at the top to make sure the next person that went over was there, and all the checks and balances were accounted for, and there was no complacency. But I think so many people become complacent, and these career politicians, I think, truly are doing more harm than good. I'd love to see term limits. I'll just throw that out there. I'd love to see term limits. Come serve your country. Add value. Bring your experience, bring your ideas. But if you can't do that in let's say 8 to 12 years, well, hey, I think it's time to move on.
Yeah, not a bad idea.
Oh, just throwing it out
there. So what's your prediction on when the next election is going to be?
I think it's going to be sooner than people realize. Well, our truckers have said, either Trudeau resigns, in which case, if he resigns, I don't think you're going to see anybody step into that role that is not going to force an election sooner than later.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't resign and backtracks on the mandates, I think you're still going to see pressure, a push to have an election sooner than later. I think at this point, I think Trudeau is a little concerned, or at least he should be.
Yeah.
They
seem to be positioning Cynthia Freeland as his heir apparent. And
well, this is where we need to be very careful, because this is what I was saying earlier, where this is not about Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau doesn't, in my opinion, doesn't have the wherewithal to do what's been going on. This truly is going back to the World Economic Forum and Gerald Butt and Chrystia Freeland, these young global leaders that Klaus Schwab is so pleased and proud of. And it's the ideology that needs to be changed and needs to be booted out of Ottawa, not just Justin Trudeau. I did a video tonight that said, "Truck you, Justin Trudeau." I love that one. It was like, "Truck you, Trudeau." But it's not just him. And that's what people need to be cautious of. It's, that's like Aaron O'Toole. Aaron O'Toole has gone along with everything Justin Trudeau
has.
And every Conservative MP, not only, God bless Pierre Poilievre for finally stepping forward and being the first to come out and support this. But again, it is, to me, it's a little too late. Too little, too late. And especially for Aaron O'Toole, who literally took him 3 weeks to make a decision as to whether or not this was something he could support. No.
He seems to want to be liberal light.
Well, he is not want to be. He certainly is. And, when you've gone along with this for 22 months and the only reason he wants some of the limelight now is because it's popular, right? And the world is watching. But he's not a leader. They're cowards. And right now we need more lions. We need more truckers.
Yes. I was happy to see you mentioned Pierre. He came, on board before O'Toole did, and so did Leslie Lewis. And she's a new parliamentarian. And I was cheering her on because I thought, good for you. Like, you need to speak up. And
but here's the caution again. The parties are not run by the people who are out front necessarily, like the leaders, right? I mean, those big traditional parties have a lot of people in the background.
Big machine.
Making decisions. They control the money. And what's going to happen? This is my prediction. Let's see if it comes true. Aaron O'Toole is not going to survive this.
No,
he's not going to survive it. So I think Pierre is the sidelines, dry powder over here that they're going to put in. And they're going to really push the Conservatives. Oh, well, we've got new leadership. We've got new this. We got new that. And I like Pierre. Don't get me wrong. He's the only person with half a brain in there that, has good, intelligent arguments and understands. But don't forget, it's still the same Conservative Party of Canada behind him, right? The ones that have pushed an agenda and have gone along for 22 months because it was the popular thing and they were trying to steal that Liberal vote. So, this is where I will stand behind Max and the People's Party of Canada, because for 2 years we've sang the same song and it's always been about principles. It's always been about every Canadian. No one here has gotten left behind in supporting rights and freedoms, and doing what was right was hard. And you get called a lot of names, which it's okay. I got a thick skin, doesn't bother me. But some other people not so thick.
Yes.
and those are the people that I want to stand behind now and support. Your whistle stop cafes who
absolutely,
we're not closing our doors. You want it, you come take it.
Yeah.
And those are the people I'm going to stand behind. The Brian Peckfords. Isn't it amazing? A good Newfie. I'm from Newfoundland originally.
Oh, yeah?
Our premier of Newfoundland, now after being out of politics for so long, and as one of the founding, writers, the authors of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, stepping back into the arena to say, sorry, no, that has never been the intention. And
yes.
You are overreaching, and this is illegal. This is a violation of everything Canada stands for.
Do you know what? I have to confess, I had not heard that. So I'm going to have to look it up after this interview. I'm going to look it up and and find out more. She probably knew.
I knew.
Brian Peckford. He's suing Justin Trudeau.
Yeah.
They actually sent out, I think, a little tweet today about here's our suit, what we're filing for.
Yeah.
And he's taking on Justin Trudeau over the charter and the violations. So it'll be real. Like I said, things are going to get very interesting for Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party, because they've got a lot to account for.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. No. Well, Nadine, thank you so much.
You're awesome.
I mean, you're an hour earlier than we are right now, but I don't know how long you've been there. So maybe your body clock's still on Alberta time, but it's almost 9 o'clock there. Thank you so much.
Yes,
on behalf of myself and Donna and our listeners, and the show airs every Monday from 8 to 10, and that's Mountain Standard, 10 to noon Eastern Standard. Goes across Canada, and I think it's going to spark a lot of discussion, the discussion that we just had, and I appreciate it.
Well, I'm not hard to find. Nadine at nadinewellwood.ca. I have a YouTube channel, which I've just started up again. I went through a bit of a move after the last election, so I got a little quiet there for a couple of months, but I have a YouTube channel. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I always tell people I'm not hard to find. And I love an opportunity to talk to an audience about freedoms and rights and things that they can do in their local communities. To make sure that, we don't see ourselves in this situation again. So, and God bless the two of you for reaching out, because, the message from every different possible angle, and anybody who's willing to listen and to share, and to do what you do, and send a podcast out or I appreciate it. It's not easy, right?
Yeah,
so
but it's good. So, spell your last name, because Wellwood should be easy, but I'm sure there's many different spellings of it. So go ahead and let them know if they're looking for Nadine. They're going, what was that last name again? Spell it out.
Nadine Wellwood, Nadine. Wellwood, Wellwood.
Yeah.
Yes. I like it. Be blessed tomorrow as you go and speak.
Yeah, you're awesome, Nadine. Thank you for sharing.
God's country tomorrow, and I'm sure we'll connect in the future.
Thank you. Keep smiling. Stay strong, Canada. Woo! We're getting to the goalpost.
That's right.